Stability, growth, and survival of an enterprise depend on its ability to establish relatively impregnable bases from which to adapt and extend their operations in an uncertain, changing, and competitive world. All firms can succumb to what we might call the buggy whip phenomenon. Change only occurs in response to some dramatic opportunity or threat. Of all the external disruptions that can send shockwaves through the boardrooms of fundamentally stable companies, those that strike at core competencies pose the greatest existential threat. These external shocks can take a variety of forms, from the arrival of a new competitor with an unbeatable cost advantage, to a technological innovation that makes current modes of production or distribution obsolete, to a change in consumer tastes and behavior, to new laws and regulations mandated by the state that shift the whole structure of an industry under a company's feet. Whatever form it takes, an external shock presents the biggest seismic challenge to corporate decision-makers. These disturbances provoke management to react and change the firm's strategy to cope with the new set of circumstances. How well a company adapts to a changing landscape beyond its boardroom and the factory fence is the key determinant of survival and a central theme of this book. This book is structured around the rise and fall of Labatt. From the 1840s, when John Kinder Labatt joined Samuel Eccles in the business of brewing in the upper Canadian town of London, it moves to the 1850s and 1860s, when beer was still seen as a daily necessity of life, and brewing an essential enterprise in a pioneer society. It then follows rhythms in the life cycle of the firm through the stormy waters of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when an anti-alcohol sentiment worked its way into the hearts and minds of a large number of morally exercised Canadian do-gooders, to Prohibition in the 1910s and 1920s, when Labatt turned to bootlegging in an attempt to survive, to Labatt's efforts to escape its sinful past, and to the kidnapping of its president in the 1930s. It then picks up the story after the Second World War, when Labatt became part of a national brewing oligopoly known as the Big Three, and examines the company's efforts to create Canada's first national beer brands in the 1960s and the diversification drive of the 1970s and 1980s. Finally, it follows the firm through the Americanization and globalization of the brewing industry in the 1980s and 1990s, when Labatt ultimately fell into the hands of the 600-year-old Belgian brewery Interbrew. Although this story proceeds chronologically, the book reflects the underlying premise that successful companies incessantly grow and change in response to opportunities and threats. Firms act like biological species, and only the fittest are able to adjust to changes in their external environments. Those that don't, or can't, die, or get devoured by the fitter species. Think, for instance, of Canada's banks and railways. Once there were many, now there are few. During Labatt's long life, the decision-makers formulated strategies and created structures to meet the shifting demands of the marketplace. Their formulations did not always result in success. From its pioneer beginning in the southwest corner of the British colony of Upper Canada, Labatt's grew, sometimes stumbled, and grew again to the point that by the 1980s it dominated as one of Canada's most successful breweries and a player on the world stage. But then it fell once more, this time for good and into foreign hands. That Labatt trajectory is the subject of this study. What did the decision-makers at Labatt do right, and what did they do wrong? The book looks at both the decisions made by those at Labatt, some who were family owners and others who were drawn from the managerial ranks, in response to opportunities and external shocks, and the regional and national context in which those decision-makers operated. All of them were entrepreneurs in that they were tasked with making tough decisions when no perfect information or obviously correct answer was available in an often foggy marketplace. Thus, this book is squarely